first to Victoria, where the Premier has perhaps damaged the reputation of Australia and Melbourne in particular as a place to do business and sport, especially when it comes to major events like the Commonwealth Games. Joining me to discuss this, and he wrote about it in The Australian today, the Australian's Foreign Affairs editor, Greg Sheridan. Greg, great to catch up with you again. This morning you wrote that Daniel Andrews' dumping of the Commonwealth Games is almost the definition of sovereign risk. What did you mean by that?
Steve, great to be with you. Well, Andrews has a lot of form here. The state of Victoria signs up to things involving a lot of other people, lot of, binding contracts, lots of money, and then just can't perform and pulls out, doesn't do it. So he began his term in government by pulling out of the Eastern Freeway Hoddle Street project, which his predecessors had signed up to, but it was a signed state government commitment. And then he pulled out. He ended up having to pay a lot of money to contractors who had their contracts broken. Cost the state maybe $1 billion for nothing. And then on this matter, he signed up binding contracts, lots of other people, lots of money involved, and then sort of on a whim decides he can't afford it. Now that is sovereign risk, because you cannot trust the sovereign government to honour its contracts. That's a very bad thing for any jurisdiction's international reputation. You make a binding legal agreement with the Victorian Government, and of course under our law they have to pay compensation if they break a contract, but you can't rely that they're actually going to do it. Of course, it's also tremendously undemocratic, because not only can't the investors rely on you, neither can the voters.
Ironically, Greg, one thing he didn't tear up, but he had torn up for him, was when he signed up to the Belt and Road deal with the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah, well, that was a stupid thing to do. The state government has no expertise in foreign policy. It was against the national foreign policy of his own nation. It was against the policy of the Labor Party federally. He's always had this bizarre soft spot for communist China. Look, I really think he's been a terrible premier in substance for Australia, brilliant political manipulator. I think it's a sign that there's a failure in Australian culture of accountability of state governments, that a government can govern as badly as this. So Victoria has the worst credit rating of any state in Australia, worse than Tasmania, worse than South Australia. It has the highest per capita state debt of any state in Australia, with all its huge natural benefits of big city of Melbourne, not too much territory, all the rest of it, natural resources galore and so on. And yet, he keeps getting re-elected because he's brilliant at manipulating social media and bypassing mainstream media. And I think the fact that you can govern as badly as that and still get re-elected is a very damning indictment of the culture of state politics in Australia.
You didn't miss him. You said he has the ideology of Bernie Sanders, the social policies of San Francisco, with the financial prudence of Puerto Rico. That's a pretty good slap.
Well, and I think it's all true. And I also said he had an attitude to authoritarianism, as if Enid Blyton had been rewritten as a socialist dystopia. And it is a horrible melange, So Daniel Andrews complained a year or so ago that he wasn't getting enough gas from Queensland for the state economy. This is after he effectively banned exploration for gas in Victoria. He has gone down every woke road you can imagine. I mean, the legal system looks problematic, with shocking persecution of an innocent man in Cardinal George Pell, and not a single charge laid after the Lawyer X scandal. I mean, Victoria is a tin pot, one-party state. It's had one party in office far, far too long, and it just shows how incestuous and hopeless. It doesn't have an effective ICAC. I mean, some of our friends don't like ICACs, but if Victoria had anything like the New South Wales ICAC, I think this government would have been thrown out long ago. And it's just, Victoria is the most dysfunctional state in Australia.